Deep in the heart of a sun-dappled forest, nestled high in the branches of a grand old oak tree, lived a squirrel named Squeaky. Now, Squeaky wasn't just any squirrel. He was the most industrious, the most ambitious, and certainly the most acorn-obsessed squirrel in the entire woodland. His life had one single, solitary purpose: to collect as many acorns as he possibly could. From the first blush of dawn until the last ray of sunlight faded from the sky, Squeaky was a whirlwind of furry activity. He'd scamper up trunks, leap from branch to branch with breathtaking agility, and meticulously inspect every single acorn he found. Was it plump enough? Was the shell uncracked? Was it the perfect shade of nutty brown? Only the absolute best made it into his collection. And what a collection it was! His tray, the cozy nest he'd built in a hollow of the oak, was overflowing. Acorns spilled out of the entrance. They were tucked into every nook and cranny, and he even had a secret backup stash in a forgotten woodpecker hole. He had acorns for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and still his pile grew larger and larger. He loved to spend his afternoons just sitting on his mountain of treasure, polishing his favorite acorns with his fluffy tail and admiring their shine. The other forest creatures would often watch him. There was Barnaby the rabbit, with his twitching nose and gentle eyes, and Penelope the wise old owl, who saw everything from her high perch. Then there was Finn the fox, with a sly grin but a good heart. They would sometimes call out to him, "Squeaky, what a magnificent collection!" "Are you planning a feast?" Barnaby would ask, his ears perked with curiosity. Squeaky would just puff out his chest and clutch an acorn possessively. "These are my acorns," he would squeak back, his voice a little too sharp. "I gathered them. Every single one. Mine." He never offered to share, not even a single, slightly bruised acorn. When his friends invited him to play tag among the ferns or to go berry picking by the stream, he'd always refuse. "Can't," he'd say, his eyes darting around for more nuts. "Too busy." Important acorn business to attend to. His friends would sigh and go on their way, their laughter echoing through the trees. Squeaky would watch them for a moment, a strange little pang in his chest, but then he'd spot a new acorn on the ground, and the feeling would be forgotten, buried under the excitement of another find. He told himself he didn't need friends. He had his acorns. They were his friends, his family, his entire world. One afternoon, the sky began to change. The cheerful blue was swallowed by a heavy, bruised-looking gray. The birds stopped singing, and an eerie silence fell over the forest. Penelope the owl hooted a low warning. "A big storm is coming." "Everyone, take cover and secure your homes," Squeaky scoffed from his doorway, surrounded by his fortress of nuts. "Let it storm," he muttered to himself. "I'm perfectly safe. And so are my precious acorns." He watched as Barnaby frantically tried to reinforce his burrow entrance with twigs and mud, and as Finn herded his little kids into their den. He felt a smug sense of superiority. He was prepared. He was always prepared. The storm hit with a fury he had never witnessed. The wind howled like a hungry wolf, tearing at the leaves and shaking the mighty oak tree to its roots. Rain came down not in drops, but in solid sheets, blurring the world into a watery mess. Squeaky huddled deep inside his tray, his heart thumping against his ribs. The tree groaned and swayed violently. Suddenly, with a tremendous, splintering crack, the branch that held Squeaky's tray was ripped from the trunk. His world turned upside down, a chaotic tumble of leaves, twigs, and acorns. He was tossed through the air, landing with a soft thud in a pile of wet leaves far below. Dazed and terrified, he looked up. His beautiful home, his magnificent collection, was gone. The branch had smashed to pieces on the forest floor, and his lifetime's work thousands of perfect acorns were scattered, washed away by the torrents of rain and buried in the mud. The storm raged on for what felt like an eternity. When it finally subsided, a watery sun peeked through the clouds. The forest was transformed. Branches were down everywhere. The stream had overflowed its banks, and everything was coated in a thick layer of mud. Squeaky stood up, shivering and soaked. He frantically dug through the debris where his home had been, but it was hopeless. He found one, just one, muddy acorn. He clutched it to his chest, and for the first time in his life, Squeaky felt truly poor. He was alone, he was cold, and he was hungry. A small, sad tear rolled down his furry cheek and mixed with the rainwater in his fur. What was he going to do? Winter was coming, and he had nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just then, he heard a soft voice. Squeaky, are you all right? It was Barnaby the rabbit, his fur damp and messy, but his eyes full of concern. Behind him were Penelope and Finn. They had come to check on him. Squeaky couldn't even speak. He just held up his one muddy acorn, his little body trembling. He expected them to say, "I told you so," or to laugh at the selfish squirrel who had lost everything. But they didn't. Barnaby hopped closer and nudged Squeaky's paw with his nose. "Oh, you poor thing! You're home. It's all gone." Penelope glided down from a low branch. The storm was harsh on everyone, little one. But we are all safe. That is what matters most. Finn added, "We were worried about you. We know how much you loved that spot." Squeaky looked at their kind faces, and something inside him cracked open. It wasn't just the storm that had broken his home. It was breaking his selfish heart too. I have nothing," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "All my acorns, they're gone." Barnaby smiled gently. "Not everything is gone, Squeaky. We still have our homes, and we were able to save some of our food." He then did something that astonished Squeaky. He hopped over to a small nook in his own burrow-esque entrance and pulled out 3 plump carrots and a handful of clover. "Here," he said, pushing them towards Squeaky. "You must be hungry." Before Squeaky could react, Finn trotted over with a small bundle of berries he had managed to keep dry. "And here, the kids won't miss these." Penelope even flew down with the fat, juicy beetle she had caught. "A bit of protein for strength," she hooted softly. Squeaky stared at the offering. Carrots, berries, a beetle, food. They were sharing their food with him. With him, the squirrel who had never shared a single thing in his entire life. He looked from the food to their friendly faces and felt a warmth spread through his chest that had nothing to do with the returning sun. It was a warmth far better than sitting on a pile of cold acorns. "But why?" Squeaky asked, his voice thick with emotion. "I was never nice to you. I never shared my acorns because we're friends," Barnaby said simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "And friends help each other, especially when they're in trouble." In that moment, Squeaky understood. He had spent his whole life collecting things, thinking they would make him happy and secure. But in the end, his mountain of acorns couldn't protect him from the storm, and it certainly couldn't offer him comfort. His friends, the very ones he had ignored, were the ones who came to his rescue. From that day on, Squeaky was a changed squirrel. He helped his friends rebuild, and together they foraged for new winter supplies. When Squeaky found a patch of delicious-looking nuts, his first instinct was no longer to hide them away. Instead, he would call out, "Barnaby, Finn, Penelope, look what I found!" There's plenty for everyone. He discovered that an acorn shared with a friend tasted infinitely sweeter than 100 acorns eaten alone. He learned that the sound of laughter was a far more valuable treasure than a pile of nuts. His new dray was smaller and less cluttered, but it was always open to visitors, and it was filled with something his old home never had: happiness and the warmth of true friendship. Squeaky finally realized that the richest squirrel in the forest isn't the one with the most acorns, but the one with the most friends to share them with. Thank you so much for watching! If you enjoyed Squeaky's story, don't you forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more tales from the heart of the forest. See you next time!